What's happening? Andy here. I am joined today by my friend Chelsey Bode of Pearson-Kelly Technologies down in Springfield, Missouri. How are you?
We call it misery, but I'm doing great. No.
What's happening? What's happening down there in Springfield? How's Pearson-Kelly? Tell us first. Why don't we just step back for someone who might watch this and not know who you guys are? Tell us what's Pearson-Kelly Technologies.
Sure. So we started as an office equipment dealer, but we really do all things business tech. So we cater to like 20 to 150 users, and we do everything from managed IT services to hosted voice solutions, business surveillance, copiers and printers. We rep Konica Minolta, Kia Cerat, and Canon.
Three excellent brands. And I've seen you at all those dealer conferences. That must keep you very busy. And your role there is
Adult babysitter. No.
adult babysitter. And what does it say on your card? I think it's a C.
No.
There's a C in it or something.
Yes. So
CEO?
my title are CEO. Yes. We recently, well, I recently promoted our executive VP to president of the company, and that's been a big, nice, refreshing change for us.
So that's actually kind of interesting because I feel like I just ran the article where you became president. Your dad stepped back, you took over. That was probably a couple of years ago, a year or two ago at this point, maybe.
So that was, let's see, that was about a handful of years ago. And
Oh,
then
wow.
I went ahead and purchased him out the rest of the way in 2021. So I became 100% owner in October of 2021.
Well,
And we took a
congratulations
step.
on that. What happened? What made you decide, you know what, I don't want to be president and CEO, it's too much. What led to bringing somebody up and tell me how's that changed your life and who is it? You haven't even told us who it is yet.
Yeah, so his name's Lee Flood. He is a phenomenal, I would call him a partner, really. He's not a partner from a liability standpoint, but he's a day-to-day partner that makes this place tick. And I think scalability would be the word I give you for why it made sense and the time was right. Those that know me well know that I like to pack 50 pounds into a 5-pound bag. And so all the titles in the world, I take them on all day, every day. I prefer sales by default, but realistically, it was time when we started going through traction and I read the book Rocket Fuel and really starting to embrace that. Although I like to get my hands into a lot of things and can somewhat navigate around most things, I really embraced and started embracing of the things I was best at and where some of the things that I needed to get out of my own way, how to identify those, how to have some introspect and kind of enjoy life more whenever I was getting to focus on the things that were really going to allow us to scale, allow us to get to that next level and have some of the more execution pieces fall on someone else's shoulder. And we went through some self-discovery and really challenged each other a lot, and we still do that every single day. But it's been a fun ride and it's been refreshing, I think, for all involved, and added some role clarity to the organization as a whole.
Very cool. Very cool. You mentioned some of the certifications and some of the groups that you're a member of. I off the top of my head, CDA, you're on the board there, right? You let us know about that. You are advisory council for ConnectWise, obviously a big group in our world. ACDI, you're on the advisory council. We're not sure if that's still as active as it was pre-pandemic, but you were on it at that point. You still maybe on it. What other stuff are you active in? What other kinds of groups do you participate in? There was a women's group with Konica Minolta.
Yes, that's been great. They've done a lot to really embrace not only playing women up and giving us some different avenues, but some avenues to actually find out who's out there. And there's some virtual meetings that take place once a month that you can be part of, being a woman in the industry. And it gets a little less lonely. There's actually a lot of us out there. So that's refreshing to see. I sit on the advisory council for Intermedia, our phone partner, and probably the biggest time investment that I've taken on is we parceled off a group from CDA called MTA, Managed Technology Association. And so I'm currently chair of that, and we meet monthly virtually and 3 times a year in person, and really with the purpose of financial benchmarking, holding each other accountable, and using a consultant to make sure that we're all reporting our financials the same way, and then crossing us and beating us up against each other and saying, Andy, why are you successful and Chelsey sucks? How did you do that? Can you go teach Chelsey? Because Chelsey told me it's impossible, and apparently it's not. And so there's a lot of not just the talk and conference-led purpose to that meeting. It is, we'll have homework in place. We'll have lots of personalities that we bring. So not just the owner. It'll also include IT director or sales director, for IT though being the focus, and hoping that we can all get there profitably.
Well, so that concept has worked so well with peer groups like CDA and many of the others, right? We all know like the Hay Johnson model is used for many of the groups, probably with yours. I forget who uses it to what extent, but let's get everyone on the same page. Let's put our numbers in and see how we stack up against the other 20 or 30 or 50 members of whatever group it is. And the value of that, it's got to be incredible. So you guys have brought that concept over to managed services.
Correct. And we've also opened it up not just to office equipment dealers that are members of CDA, but one of my favorite components is we allow those that are focused on the MIT division that are members of CDA, but also pure play MSPs. Because what we've found is the office equipment originating dealers that have added IT services through acquisition or organic growth or whatnot, all are usually pretty good at marketing and sales, and struggle a little bit more on the operations or the back-end structure of the technical talent. And pure play MSPs usually struggle with the marketing and sales piece, but are really ironclad on the back end. And so if we can cross-pollinate some of that information and grow each other as kind of merging two different historical industries together, it's been fun. We still only have a couple, but it's continuing to grow and just add a different dynamic to that group.
Oh, just picking their brains. I mean, all of you are in CDA are, traditionally copier dealers at heart, right? That's what you all started as. Maybe you aren't that someday. Actually, you didn't all start as that, but that's what you're kind of coming out of at this point. Many of you are probably typewriter dealers or adding machines, calculators, whatever, right? But now, we're all kind of coming out of this office equipment reseller phase, and you've got some really good brands in there. And it's funny. I think when we did an interview a couple of years ago and we chatted, and you were clearly, more of a copier company that was a lot more prominent on your website. So let's shift gears. You were talking about marketing. I think that's a good segue over. Tell me about how you identify now, because, I look at your website and you used to be a hardware company, a copier company. And, we joked before we started recording, but now copiers are fourth over, right? You have managed IT, you have phones, you have cameras are up there now. So, and then the copiers, which is, I'm guessing, still driving a lot of that process, but the expansion's been in three other areas. Let's talk about, how are you changing the image of Pearson-Kelly? What's that been like? What challenges have you faced, and just how's that gone?
Yes, you bet. So one of the funny things when I've had this conversation with other people asking that same question, and some of them are peers in different markets, and they'll be like, we just can't get our sales team acting like a managed IT company or our clients to buy in. And I'm like, let's pull up your website. And the very first thing is just like puking these copiers scrolling around. And I'm like, you haven't even embraced it yourself. So why are you asking the people around you to embrace it?
Shoeless shoemaker, right?
Yeah. So I think for us, step one, recognizing that those reoccurring dollars are the pandemic-proof dollars. And so those could come from a service contract that's tied to a copier. That's absolutely a monthly reoccurring dollar. But as I was mentioning back in the day, whenever we would do lead share with a lot of these pure play MSPs, we were bringing them 0 leads, and they were bringing us tons of leads, because it was very easy for the customer to look to them and trust that they're going to bring in the right partner for hardware. They didn't really care who their hardware vendor suggested for overall network strategy and infrastructure and security needs. And so part of that mentality was, we need to make sure that if this is what we want our reps leading with, because we feel like some of these other ancillary products are going to trail and make that selling cycle quicker and less competitive, because they're not going to squabble over $10 a month on a copier lease if we're doing everything else for them. It just makes sense for them not to have that tug of war game. So if that's going to be our focus, We need to communicate it on the web. Most of the markets that we serve already recognize us as a copier and print company. And so we're getting a lot of those leads from the measurements that we have in place. And we're less known for those other divisions. And then to kind of pare back, what we had to make really, and I don't even know, I mean, there's probably still misses all the way around, but we focused big time on how to communicate it internally, because the last thing that we wanted to do is have all these initiatives outward facing and then lose sight of the fact of the messaging that we're sending to our internal team. If you're a service tech, or if your full job is to install copiers or provide toner fulfillment, it's like, are we telling you that you have no job in the next 5 years? And so before we made that launch, we communicated it, and then some that do not miss here. We expect to grow this division too. We will, or there will be changes made. We are not saying copiers are going away. Here's why we're doing it. This is what our marketing initiative is. And then here's when we're going to launch that. And then we had to reinforce that often because it still gets early. But that was some of the mentality behind it.
So when your reps are out there selling, do you have different reps selling the different technologies? Do you have quotas just for a single geo rep to go sell all of these different offerings? How does that work in Pearson-Kelly?
I love that question. So there's a lot of different ways to skin the cat. The way that we've chosen to go about it is we have what we call our hunter reps. So they're in a certain geography, and we really don't want them an expert in any of the offerings. We want them an expert in opening the doors, high activity, super fun to be around, and know the right questions to ask and or get the no fast. So get it out of the way. If it's not, that segment that you're after, know who the ideal client looks like, what the use case is for these divisions, either get the no fast and move on, or bring in a subject matter expert that is paid and trained to be an expert within that division. And so there's a lot of layers. I mean, there's downfall to that too, because there's a lot of layers of commission. Sometimes I'm like, how much did we pay out? Who all got a piece of the pie? Is there any pie left to go back to the house? And, and so that's been a constant trying to refine, but I still feel like that is the right way for account management, the activity that we're looking for, and then that subject matter expert kind of to go along to really get what we're trying to accomplish for that right client engagement.
Well, it is a trend, and I've seen other companies do that, and you have to, from where I sit, it does make sense as an ex rep. I think like if my company offered all of those things and I went in there to sell office equipment, and then, Chuck went in there to go sell phones, and then Diane went in there to go sell managed services, whose account is it? And who's going to be left holding the bag when one of them screws it up? And now I lost my copiers because you guys messed something else up or overpromised and I wasn't in there. And, so to have one person kind of as the driver of that and leading, as a point of control, point of contact, I think it does simplify. The issue is they quickly get over their heads. But if they're bringing in specialists that are better versed at speaking to those technologies, then they're not wasting their times banging on doors, right? So I think it's a good approach. I mean, you'll find out.
Well, and then the other hurdle with that approach too is you mentioned quotas. How do you chase that? Because you go to conferences and they say, best practice is to make a really simplified commission and bonus structure where people understand very clearly what they're focused on and how do they get paid. And so you're like, okay, so you're asking them to sell all these things, and how do we not have them chasing every rabbit hole? And so we've really parceled it into 2 quotas. We say you have a managed reoccurring or a monthly reoccurring bucket or quota, and then you also have a one-time. So hardware, transaction, solution sales, business cameras, like all of those go towards that, what we call the one-time attainment quota. And then hosted voice and IT services go to their MRR budget. And so we don't care how they get there, they can figure that out, but that gives them a little more flexibility. We feel like it's simplified it. Again, there's pitfalls to that too, but it's how we operate today.
So this sounds like a complete reorganization of your sales force. How did that go? That couldn't have been easy, because I'm sure you had people who were sitting there in that seat for 20 years saying, this is how I've always done it, I'm not changing. So I know people like that. I know you know people like that. So how has this transition gone? Do you still have the same people?
For the most part, yeah, there's been attrition through it, and I laugh. I probably shouldn't say this on camera, but
Oh, you will.
I don't like being told what to do, and so it really started with me, where a bunch of consultants said, "You have to get a dedicated IT team that's separate from your OE," and I'm like, "Why?" Like, well, because that's what, and I get
Because
history
that's what
does
everybody
repeat
else
itself.
does.
But yeah, but it's like, what, I don't know, like maybe they're right, but I like to try it my way sometimes, or a different way, maybe not my way, but a different approach to it. If everybody says you have to do something, um, I'll get back in line with what needs to happen. And we have failed and had to get back in line with that methodology as well. But in this case, it started really with that. And so myself and Darius, our director of sales, got in front of the sales team and said, "This is what the consultants are telling us, and we have an opportunity. We are going to give you guys the opportunity to prove them wrong or right. And you've got 6 months to do it. And if you can't sell it, you can't open doors, this is what's going to happen. And you have no ability to make money or commissions on this. You get like a $10 McDonald's gift card or whatever we're going to do to spit that." And said, "It's up to you. And we just think that you guys should get the right to prove it right or wrong." And that was about 3 years ago. And we're still getting to run with that model. So
Well, as that model gets entrenched, those issues go away, right? I mean, it's that shock at the beginning with the people who have been there, and it's just, it's a Band-Aid, right? I mean, it's coming in saying, "I know you've always been doing it this way. I know we trained you to do it this way, but we've got something new that we're going to try." And good for you for seeing it through and going through all that. I do want to ask you about cameras, because managed services, that's something we see quite a bit in our world. I see them at all the BTA shows. Obviously, it's a direction that, I think a lot of people, a lot of analysts would agree companies like you need to be going in. And so you're already down that path. The other ones that you've got on that, same thing, right? VoIP, that's another new one, and still kind of for our group new. But people are really interested in that. But the one that kind of grabbed me was the cameras. So what's that like? How long you been doing it? Whose technology are you selling? Because you've got two great partners, I think, that I could think of that might be who you're using. But how's that been? What kind of services are you offering around that?
yeah, so you're basically saying why are
Yeah.
cameras relevant or other stack. So very good question. Lee would tell you if he were on this interview, they're not. He hates them. They
We'll
don't
edit
have a ton
this all
of
out. We'll
them.
edit it all out.
No, no, but it's all good because it is an internal discussion. And here's why
Yeah.
we like them, why we sell them. You asked the partner, it's for Kata. And so we did not look to go to cameras because they offered reoccurring revenue. They don't, at least for the solution that we provide. We didn't go to distract the sales team, and we have made their comp plan to the point that they do not make very good money on these if they're not using that division with the right purpose in mind. So to me, I call it kind of my direct marketing group. The cameras are awesome, and they are literally sold before you walk in, and that the decision is led by the IT director. They obsess over them because the solution gives them so much time back, that if you find the right environment or vertical like manufacturing or car dealerships and things like that, they just sell themselves. So really where we use that division is to get our team in front of people that would not talk to us before.
So
And
is it security?
it's a hybrid cloud, yeah, surveillance camera that it has a 10-year warranty. Really easy for IT people, because instead of having to go through all the measures before, if I called up and said, "I want to see the Joplin location right now on a Friday night," and then they're trying to make sure that all the security things are in place or whatever they had to do, that apparently takes a lot of time. I can get a link. I can hit the link in a text message, and I can pull up the thumbnail, and I can go through and say, "I want to see any female in a red shirt and the time frame of 5 to 10." It's really, really cool. And then it gives you the thumbnails. And so I'm not having to watch a video. I can go through and say, "No, this is exactly the license or the car color that I was looking for in that parking lot."
Oh
And
man,
so
so it's
it's
like
a
Ring on major steroids.
yeah, it is. So it's that cool geeky thing to talk about. That's kind of
Yeah.
our lost leader, just to get into doors and to start having a conversation in logos that we historically haven't.
But it positions you guys as a technology leader that you're even doing that, right? And so Oh, that's pretty sharp, pretty interesting. I like that.
And fun. We've used like our solution specialist drives a Tesla company, Tesla. I own a Tesla. I've driven it once in 5 years, so I don't really. But we took the trunk, or I guess the trunk's in like the front of it, and actually in the back, and we pimped that out with a bunch of those cameras throughout the trade show, and then put monitors and
Oh,
the
cool.
trunk, yeah, the hood under the hood. And so we had all the people nerding out coming in talking to us about what all the things that we did were. And so it's just, again, it's another thing for that pattern interrupt that's allowed us into conversations that usually when we have a copier booth, people are hiding and putting paper in front of
Yeah,
their
it's
face.
boring. It's a copier, like everybody gets it by now. But to put a Tesla out there, maybe you get yourself a, EV charging station. I'm sure the fellas down at ACDI would love to talk to you
Call me
about that.
Josh.
Yep, Josh and Mark would love to talk to you about that. I guarantee it. But until you get there, just the wow factor of putting a car like that, out there, especially a couple of years ago when it was a much bigger deal when people really didn't have it as much, and now, just covering it in cameras, and I'm sure there's a cool wrap on it or whatever, and yeah. So like that's a wow factor, right? And so you're getting a lot of attention from this. Is that where your marketing budget is going? Is that like when you're out there at this point, we'll kind of wind down with these questions here on just how you're marketing yourself. Is that, where are you spending your money to showcase, and what are you talking about in front of people at this point to reinvent Pearson-Kelly for the next 10 years?
Sure. It's hard. We've always been on more of a shoestring budget because I think the best marketing and advertising is the stuff you don't pay for. And so looking at the opportunities for, thought leadership where we're maybe not even talking about anything technology related. We, myself and Lee, did kind of a TED talk on culture at our Joplin location a couple of months ago. And we've actually gained 2 employees that were in the audience that have since came asking if there are open positions. And so I think just doing things that really get the right type of targeted audience. You have to be careful. You can't just go out doing things for the sake of doing things, but trying to identify, who are these IT directors that we're not getting to talk to and why? Well, they don't want to hear from salespeople about copiers. Well, how do we take the surveillance cameras and the Teslas and the geeky things and the AI and just do something that's speaking to, them? And then maybe they start asking the questions of what all we do. And it's more led by them. And then same thing, thought leadership around culture, or, trying to play up little things like for, St. Patty's Day, we sent out cookies with my kids dressed up as little leprechauns that went around, to a bunch of our clients, and just having them take selfies with them and play up their businesses and have them ask questions about their own businesses and things that really slow down and sometimes just go old school. I don't get the same type of direct mail that I used to get. How do we use our team and going a little old school and going back to basics that takes all the white noise that we get out of LinkedIn and email marketing and things that, I delete 300 emails a day that have no relevance. It's again, back to some of that pattern interrupt and what gets people engaged, that engagement piece. And then hopefully the outcome is the deliverable that we're after, which is growing business.
Awesome. Well, there are plenty of ways to get good marketing without having to spend crazy money. And, I like the cookie idea, right? You get out there and then you get people sharing fun pictures. And honestly, that's what you want. You want to be seen as a fun company, somebody who's, that people enjoy doing business with, that they're happy enough that they'll do a picture, with your cookies and put it on social media, right? So like that shows other people that, hey, these guys are maybe, I've heard of them. Their card is in the pile for the copier renewal that's coming up. So maybe we should call them. So great catching up with you. I'm gonna let you go now. I don't want to take any more of your time today, but this has just been awesome. I know we'll be seeing you, or at least some of you guys from your company at some point in the future. We've got I think maybe something from Canon coming up in I think Nashville in a month or two. Plenty of stuff coming up. So hopefully we'll see you down the road. I think there's a CDA meeting I'm going to in Cincinnati. Maybe I'll see you at that. So Great seeing you. Great catching up. Any last shout outs to anybody?
No, and just keep doing what you're doing. We appreciate you keeping us all accountable, put our money where our mouth is, and asking good questions.
Well,
Thanks so much, Andy.
you are just the best down there. I got to get down there at some point. When you have a nice big event, let me know. I'd love to come down. Just do a piece on the place, visit all your people and all that. So until then, I will see you at the next event. And thanks so much for being on today.
Thank you. See you later.
Bye, Chelsey.